Donald Trump last weekend marked his first 100 days in office. Those days have been filled with lots of talking points, to say the least. We take a look at what has been achieved by Mr. Trump. Also on the program, we'll be discussing press freedom. Is the Nigerian press freer today than it was a year ago? To close the show today, we'll be talking about an election the whole world is keeping an eye on, the French election. I am Segun Ojumu, and this is Hindsight. Segun Ojumu. On this program, we'll be bringing you news, views, and exclusive interviews with
security that cut across humanitarian aid too.
It becomes easier to do business in Nigeria. Now,
Nigeria.
we begin the program in the United States, where Donald Trump has marked his first 100 days in office. Mr. Trump launched a scathing attack on the media during a rally marking 100 days in office. He told supporters in Pennsylvania that he was keeping one promise after another, dismissing criticism as fake news by out-of-touch journalists. Mr. Trump decided to skip the White House Correspondents' Dinner, becoming the first U.S. leader to miss the event since an injured Ronald Reagan in 1981. Earlier, huge rallies were held against Mr. Trump's climate change policies. Mr. Trump's approval ratings hover around the 40% mark. It is believed to be lower than any other president at the 100-day marker. At the rally in Harrisburg, the president said some not too complimentary things about the media. Let's bring you an excerpt of the speech he made at the rally. Watch this.
As you may know, there's another big gathering taking place tonight in Washington, D.C. Did you hear about it? A large group of Hollywood actors and Washington media are consoling each other in a hotel ballroom in our nation's capital right now. They are gathered together for the White House Correspondents' Dinner without the president. And I could not possibly be more thrilled than to be more than 100 miles away from Washington Swamp, spending my evening with all of you and with a much, much larger crowd and much better people, right? Media outlets like CNN and MSNBC are fake news. Fake news. So just as an example of media, take the totally failing New York Times. Pretty soon they'll only be on the internet. The paper's getting smaller and smaller. You ever notice? Starting to look like a comic book. It's getting smaller.
Classic Mr. Trump there. Now, before we get into discussions of how Mr. Trump has fared in his first 100 days in office, let's bring you an interview Mr. Trump had with CBS's John Dickerson. In that interview, Mr. Trump talks about North Korea, how he has changed his thinking about China and what he has learned in his first 100 days in office. Take a look.
Well, it's a tough job, but I've had a lot of tough jobs. I've had things that were tougher, although I'll let you know that better at the end of 8 years, perhaps 8 years, hopefully 8 years, but I'll let you know later on. I think we've done very well with foreign policy. I think we've done very, very well with relationships with other leaders. I think we're doing great on trade deals. It's set, and I think we're doing well. I mean, our country is being out-traded at every single point. We're losing tremendous amounts of money on trade. And I think actually I've been very consistent. You know, it's very funny when the fake media goes out, you know, which we call the mainstream media, which sometimes I must say is you. But when the
You
fake
mean me personally, or
your show, I love your show. I call it Deface the Nation.
All right, to talk about that and other issues, I am being joined right now in the studio by Mr. Kachi Okezie. He's a legal practitioner and an international trainer and management consultant. Mr. Kachi,
It's a pleasure to be here.
thank you very much
Thank you so much,
for
yeah.
coming. Okay, you've heard what Mr. Trump said. You saw the first clip and the last one. All right, what is your assessment of his first 100 days in office?
It's a difficult one. I don't think we've ever experienced anything like this before.
Okay.
And so it comes, you know, packaged to surprise us. And he is also surprising us, entertaining us. But I think it would have been funny if it wasn't serious. This is governance. This is world politics. So much hangs on what happens in the White House globally. The markets respond to what, you know,
He says.
to what he says or doesn't say. Responds to his body language. And he has, in my view, taken us to unknown territory. I don't think I recall any president who has been so sort of undiplomatic. You know, he has completely rendered diplomacy
Irrelevant?
almost irrelevant. You know, and so, but still, there are good things that I would. Things that I would give him credit for.
Well, like what?
Well, you know, you may not see it the way I see it, but as a politician, his first commitment, obligation, is to, as much as possible, deliver on his promises.
Okay.
He seems to be doing that as far as his constituency, his core constituency is concerned.
Okay.
You could see them in the
video
clip there,
yeah,
you know, raving for him.
boisterous crowd.
Exactly. So we're still trying to wean ourselves of the apparent misconception that led to the emergence of Trump in the elections. I think Trump's message is that we ought to perhaps change the way we assess politics and politicians. He is speaking to an audience. He's representing a point of view, and he continues to do so so far. So I think that's working for him. How long that will hold out, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Because for me, the indications are that if nothing after this first 100 days celebration, so to speak, if there's anything to celebrate,
Okay.
if after this, in the next, say, 30 to 60 days, nothing concrete happens on the promises, his failure to get legislative support to change Obamacare
yeah.
is a big dent. His inability to stand firm against North Korea, and rather almost appearing to...
Yeah. Just yesterday said he's
Exactly, he's willing to meet with him.
him.
I don't understand that. I really do not know where that came from. But again, like I said, we ought to be cautious in the way we assess politics. We all had our assessments, we all had our calculations before the elections, and the results proved us completely wrong. So we might be backing up the wrong tree here again. So we've got to be careful. So I think he is carrying his people along so far. I don't think this will continue further down the road if something really concrete isn't delivered in the next 30 to 60 days.
Okay, talking about concrete stuff being delivered, can you point to any significant achievement? Of course, Obamacare fell flat on its face, but apart from signing executive orders, you know, like Obama did in his own first 100 days, you know, what else can you point to?
But he appears to have signed more than
Yes, he has. As a matter of fact, he has.
You know, in the short time that he's been there.
Yeah.
So it looks like we're going to have governance by EOs.
Executive
orders this time. But what he has done, one example is that you might not count that as much, but I think for a lot of people, he showed leadership when he was called to do so. With his national security advisor,
Michael Flynn,
who was found, wanting when it mattered.
Yes.
And if that had lingered, people would have held it against him. But I think the fact that it was decisive, I think he had a private word with him, and that one did the right thing. So I'll count that for him. Also, the fact that he has managed to don't forget, people lose sight of what happened leading up to the elections.
What is that?
The Congress that he has, the Congress that he has was divided. His party actually is divided, split down the middle. Okay, so whilst we expected him to come hit the ground running, he has a lot of rebuilding to do for the Republican Party. Okay, before you can get them to the point where they can start performing.
They have the majority.
They have the majority, yes, but they have the majority, and they're singing. There are different majorities within the different opinions and points of view in the party right now.
Yeah.
Who are the moderates now? Who are these? This small but really voluble core that are backing him and going on and screaming in public. I think time will tell. I believe that further down the road, we'll begin to see how they actually feel. Why do I say that? The tax reforms, for example. When you break it down, and analyze some of the analysis that I've read, you find that it's actually unlikely to deliver for that core group. Many of them are not going to benefit from these reforms. And in the long analysis, the reforms are also going to favor the very people that he wants to rein in, okay? And so the sort of bogeyman of Wall Street and all the people who are, the top end of the earning scale, they're the ones who are going to benefit. And when they benefit, what are these, foot soldiers going to say? These, red bleeding heart Republicans, what are they going to say? So I think we have quite a lot coming. I'll be interested in the next 60 days more than the first 100 days.
Yeah, well, in the last 100 days, the markets have never been as high as they are now. So the economy is doing quite well. And what do you put down to the Trump effect?
I don't think so. I think that's more to do with what's happening elsewhere. Globally, yes, the markets have stilled a little bit. There was a little bit of volatility almost after the election, immediately after it happens. That's unusual. I mean, that's not unusual.
Okay.
So, but I think that what is bringing the kind of calm that you see in the markets owes more to what's happening in places like Europe. There was a lot of concern about how Brexit was going to go. It hasn't gone that way. And so after all the anxiety, it looks like there's calm coming back. In areas that have been depressed, there have been so-called green shoots of recovery being seen. Latin America have, despite the mixed messages coming out during the campaigns about what was going to happen, it looks like those feared disruptions are not going to happen now. And so NAFTA, and this is also because of the president himself, Trump, has sort of backed down on some of the extreme promises.
Yes, he promised to call China a currency manipulator.
Yes, he has his back down. He's now using friendlier language with China.
Conciliatory tones.
Conciliatory, yes. After causing a storm, he now comes closer to Canada and also to Mexico.
Yes.
Because it would be suicidal to really take on Canada and Mexico. Exactly. Because that is your market. And if you're talking about, China has been stealing your jobs, that's what he said in the campaign. Where else do you, if you wanted to sell your products, where else would you go?
Nigeria, perhaps.
Exactly. Well, no, certainly not, I can tell you.
Okay, very well. We're going to change gears now and focus on another subject, press freedom. Now, according to the 2017 World Press Freedom Ranking compiled by the Reporters Without Borders, Nigeria's record of press freedom came down from 111 in 2017, would you believe, to 122 in 2017. This is out of 180 countries graded. With the new record, Nigeria continues to rank alongside countries hostile to the free press, such as Afghanistan, Chad, the Philippines, Zimbabwe, Colombia, and others. Now, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, and the Netherlands top the list of the countries with the highest regard for press freedom. In that order, North Korea, Eritrea, Turkmenistan, Syria, and China remain at the bottom of the ladder. In a country like Norway, violence against journalists and media is rare, but the situation is different and in Nigeria and other countries with negative report about press freedom. The report says in Nigeria it is nearly impossible to cover stories involving politics, terrorism, or financial embezzlement. Journalists are often threatened and subjected to physical violence or denied access to information by government officials, police, and sometimes even the public itself. Now, Michel Arion is the head of the European Union delegation to Nigeria. He has been in Nigeria for about 4 years now. At a press conference this afternoon, I asked him his thoughts about the subject. Here is a little on what he had to say.
You have, I think in Nigeria, journalists should be more attentive to being more professional, check their sources, not doing harm to the people by spreading news that may not have been verified, etc. So there is a problem of quality, there is a problem of sources, there is a problem of ethics. So there is a lot of improvements to make in the media. We have seen, it was quite interesting to see in 2015 a lot of state media progressively changing from one side to another side. So still we see that state media can be slightly biased.
All right, we're going to take a short break before we hear what Mr. Kachi Okezie has to say about press freedom in Nigeria. Stay with us. On this program, we'll be bringing you news, views, and exclusive interviews with
security that cut across humanitarian aid.
It becomes easier to do business in Nigeria. Now,
Nigeria.
All right, welcome back. We still with Mr. Kachi Okezie here on the program. All right, before we went for that break, you heard Monsieur Michel Arion and what he had to say about press freedom. Now, what are your thoughts about press freedom in Nigeria? We've slid on that table.
Well, we have. The concern is that, first of all, this measure is a new measure.
Right.
Okay, so we need to be very clear about that. It's less than 4 years old. Mm-hmm. Okay, so there were previous measures. The UN rapporteur used to be regarded as the main barometer. Mm-hmm. Okay, based on the reports. Mm. Now, the concern about this is that this huge slide has happened within the past 18 months. Okay. Or even less than that. Mm-hmm. That is the concern. If you look at the history of press freedom in Nigeria, it has been undulating following the changing color of the government that we've had. During the military, during the military leading up to 1985 or so, before then, you know, when the decrees, the dreaded decree number 4s were there. Mm-hmm. It so much happened within a very short time. You know, the arrest of journalists, some high-profile cases, you know, really visible and felt clamped down on the press. That happened in the military, during the military dispensation.
But this is a democracy.
But we are in a democratic dispensation. And this is not just a new transition to democracy. We had begun to experience a fairly stable, you know, process. Now, this is a major bump, and we need to take notice of it.
Right.
I think that we can't expect, in my view, government to be bothered about this, to be honest with you.
Okay.
If this happened under this government, then I think it would be wrong to really expect this government to feel any ways about it. Who should be concerned more than any else? The actors. The media itself.
Should be more concerned.
Absolutely. The media itself, the, you know, sort of the pressure groups, the lawyers, the particularly those involved in the human rights campaign
NGOs.
groups and all of those, civil society as a whole,
civil society.
should be more concerned about this. And they're the ones who can do something about this. And the first thing to do is to go into a real deep analysis, very extensive analysis of what happened. How did we get it so wrong? How did we drop over 10 points
so low
in a short time? And so first priority would be how to stop it. And I don't know how much time we've got,
a minute.
but I would think that the media itself needs to immediately look at itself. Self-regulation, there's an example I noticed. Self-regulation is popular in the UK. Okay, the Press Complaints Commission, that's a model.
Okay.
So, but you have that is usually led by the profession, by the media itself. It's an industry-wide. But then you have the Ofcom, Office of the Communications Regulator. Now, Ofcom regulates everything, broadcasting, the bigger picture, if you like, the bigger picture. But the media needs to begin to call itself to order. Okay? And then civil society needs to keep the pulse point on.
So the media call itself to order.
That's right.
And then the civil society.
That's right. Yes, civil society, well, is involved in everything, really. Should raise awareness, should point out to government what is wrong with what they're doing, and should also maintain contact with the international partners, the EU, as I just saw there in the clip that you played. And then lawyers. I think, particularly, this government, the way it has started, the sort of relationship that it has forged for itself with the judiciary is such that I don't think the judiciary will be too quick to do its bidding right now. I think that this is it translates into a great opportunity for the judiciary to assert itself against all manner of human rights abuses, but in particular, press freedom. Okay.
Thank you very much. I'm afraid we have to leave it there. Yeah, there's so much more we can talk about, Mr. Okezie. I've been speaking to Kachi Okezie. He's a legal practitioner, an international trainer, and management consultant. Please get in touch with us on the program. You go online. We are on Twitter. Tweet us, and we'll tweet you right back at Hindsight STV, or you can send us an email on hindsightsilverbird@gmail.com. Mr. Okezie, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you very much. And
God bless you.
Thank you.
All right, so see you again next week. Keep watching.